Welcome, everybody, to another at-home table read. Tonight, well, we're jumping into one of those unmade, potentially classics. We don't know. It never got made. But this would have been a Guillermo del Toro horror film at the Mountains of Madness, his adaptation of Lovecraft. We're going to jump right in with our cast. None of these names are going to mean anything to a lot of y'all because, well, we don't know who any of them are, but we'll see as the script goes. So, leading us through our Dyer, we have Hunter. He's down there. Perfect. As Leake, we've got Angi. As Leake, we have Angi. Perfect. As Gedney, I think is how it's pronounced. Lynne, along with a few others. Perfect. As Pabodie, I think is how it is. We got Jeremy. Awesome. As Bordreau, we got James hanging out right over there. Perfect. As Starkweather, we have Erik. As Larsen, there we go. As McTighe, we have George. Fantastic. As Gunnarson, we have Jess.
Hey.
There she is. As Fowler, we have Randi. And as Captain Douglas, along with a few others, we have Johnny. All right, well, we're just going to get ourselves started. At the Mountains of Madness by Guillermo del Toro and Matthew Robbins. Fade in. Exterior coastal waters dawn. Gray skies, desaturated moonlight. Slack tidal waters heave gently under a blanket of heavy mist. A wooden fishing scow gradually takes shape. Superimpose, October 1939, Hobart, Tasmania. 4 Aboriginal Australian fishermen are on board, hauling in a net. Silvery fish flop on the bilge as the men transfer the bountiful catch into the ice-filled hold. One of the fishermen suddenly sees something. The chatter and work come to a stop. Silence, except for the thumping of the dying fish, gulping for air. Another angle. With infinite slowness, a huge derelict whaler floats into the view, listing heavily. Its half-exposed bottom encrusted with barnacles and rust, the hulk dwarfs the fishing boat. High on one side, the faded reads, Arkham. On board later. Thunk. A grappling hook sails over the rail and lands on the main deck. An Australian patrol boat has drawn alongside. A dozen sailors climb into the wreck, fully armed. Exterior decks. The hatches and windows are smashed, the wheelhouse crushed. Bloodstains blacken the decks. The stairs and ladders have been torn out and twisted. At the stern, a faded American flag hangs in tatters. The boarding party fans out wordlessly, awed by the destruction. The men switch on their torches and peer down the stairs. Water everywhere. Below decks, crash. A steel floor collapses, landing a seaman waist deep in rusty water on one level down. The sailors wade through tilting corridors, stopping to gawk at a cluster of mummified dogs fused into the hatchway. The snarling teeth shine in the dim light. In the stateroom, a lieutenant commander examines a shelf stacked with 35mm film cans. A handwritten label reads, Mistanic University, Antarctic Expedition, 1930.
1930.
The officer puts one of the cans into a leather pouch. Corridor. Up ahead, a storeroom. One of the men tries the door. Shut tight. As the lieutenant commander approaches.
It's locked from the... It's locked from the inside, sir.
With a hunk of scrap metal, the officer bashes in the lock. Inside, pushing aside floating crates and planks, they play their lights in the riveted bulkheads, which are scratched and buckled.
Oh, blimey. Great God Almighty.
The lieutenant commander follows his gaze. The madman, panting wide-eyed, a crouching old man stares madly at them. Chin deep in rusty water, his pale features and dry skin are in sharp contrast with his glittering, wide-open eyes.
Can you understand me? Sir, if you can, just nod your head.
The seaman approaches.
Sir, don't be afraid. We're here to help you, sir.
The seaman stops, becoming aware that the rotted remains of a human being are glued to one of the bulkheads. Disbelieving, he moves for a closer look. Suddenly, screaming, the lunatic stands, revealing, his hands, a rusty fire axe.
Don't touch him!
With a brutal blow, he sinks the axe deep into the seaman's chest. As the water reddens, other sailors leap onto him, but he shakes them off and chops again, catching one man in the back. Bang! The lieutenant commander leans into the doorway, his gun smoking, aiming for a second shot. The madman drops to his knees, his grimace exposing hideous broken teeth. His wild hair is yellow-gray, and a long, scraggly beard conceals gaunt features. His bulging, terrified eyes are pale blue. He touches the spreading bloodstain on his filthy coat and stares at his reddened hand.
A gun. You shot me. My blood. I'm back.
With a sigh, he falls face forward into the water. The men close in. Cut to exterior Hobart Docks day. Bright sunshine warms the docks at Sullivan's Cove, Hobart's busy harbor. The Union Jack is everywhere, and English sailor provisions a sturdy freighter, HMS Moonstone. They load water barrels, crates of fresh food. Sailors carry a couple of dog sleds to the gangway. A bemetaled ship's captain, Alan Starkweather, a no-nonsense, ruddy-faced veteran, walks briskly down the dock, followed by his warrant officer. He signs a few forms and climbs into a shiny black Bentley, its fenders decorated with consular flags. Exterior Hobart streets day. A chauffeur drives the Bentley through the colonial-era streets, where uniformed British and Australian soldiers mingle with colorfully dressed natives. In the Bentley, Starkweather and the local British consul are seated in the rear of the car.
Or how close then, Captain Starkweather?
2 days and counting, sir, if the weather holds.
You ever hear of the Arkham?
The consul hands him a sealed package.
Lost at sea almost a decade ago, along with her sister ship, the Mascatonic.
Starkweather opens the package, maps, memos, and the 35mm film cans from the ship.
Just fetched up here last night, with a survivor on board.
Exterior military hospital day. The Bentley sweeps past manicured lawns, palm trees, and colorful flower beds. It parks at the main entrance, where Starkweather and the council get out. A pair of uniformed sentries salute smartly as the men enter the building. Hospital corridor. Steel bars. It's the prison ward. Starkweather and the council follow the hospital director.
I must remind you, gentlemen, that despite the patient's sedation, we consider him extremely dangerous. 2 men are dead, 1 in grave condition. We had to amputate an arm.
The corpse on board. Has it been autopsied?
Shotgun wound.
He opens another door. Starkweather stares in amazement. Interior shower room continuous. The madman is propped up on a stool, his bony shoulder swathed in bandages. He's shackled to the white tiled walls with a long chain fastened to his neck, wrists, and ankles. Burly uniformed sentries stand guard as 2 orderlies cautiously cut the man's fingernails and hair.
Good Lord. Do you know his name?
I'm afraid not. He hasn't said a word.
Starkweather sits down opposite the man and studies his gaunt features.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Vous parlez français?
No response.
We've been through all that. I say he's a Yank.
The council comes over to him.
The Admiralty feels that given your destination, it's essential you look into it before you sail, you understand?
Starkweather can't conceal his impatience.
I'm hardly in the position to get involved with this. With Hitler in Poland, my timetable is even more urgent. I have to reach Antarctica by...
Thwap! The stranger wraps a bony hand around Starkweather's arm. Starkweather grimaces. It hurts. Not Antarctica. The man's grip is like steel. You must not go.
Say, sir, let go. Now.
The stranger gulps back tears and looks at the other men, barely able to control his voice. You must not sail to Antarctica. The man totters into a mirror, dragging his chains. He leans close to a mirror. Pulling back his long hair, he touches his face, aghast.
Could you be more specific, sir, about your warning, sir?
What year is it?
1939.
1939. In the mirror, the stranger twitches in horror as someone moves behind his skin. A faint, jagged fissure opens. His fingers elongate and undulate, suddenly devoid of cartilage or bone. No! In a brutal, sudden shot cut, his face and chest extrude in a mass of hungry, wet pseudopods that whip wildly into the air. Howling, the stranger turns away. Then, just as suddenly, his appearance reverts to normal. Back at the scene, the other men stare at him.
What's wrong?
Did you see it? Did I change? I cannot trust my eyes. My mind. Back to scene, the other men stare at him.
What's wrong?
Did you see it? Did I change? I cannot trust my eyes, my mind.
He grows increasingly distraught, yanking at the chains.
If I change, if I do, you must kill me, you hear? You must kill me, or I will infect the world.
The sentries restrain him. Starkweather reproaches.
Sir, your name. Sir, what is your name?
Hey, my name is William Dyer, adjunct professor, Miskatonic University Expedition.
The hospital director takes notes.
And your age, Professor Dyer?
I was 25 years old when we left America.
Dissolve 2, exterior Miskatonic campus, night. Flashback. Camera pulls back from a young William Dyer. At 25, wearing a tuxedo, he's almost unrecognizably healthy and handsome. The party is underway at a flower garden where prosperous New England donors and faculty mingle under festive paper lanterns. In the background, the imposing red brick buildings of the university.
I was handpicked for the voyage by Dr. Gilman Lake, chairman of the biology department.
Dyer poses for a group of distinguished scientists, Atwood, Pabodie, Fowler, Dyer, and Leake. Beneath the wing of the huge aluminum aircraft, news photographers gather round.
Along with my best friend, Walter Danforth, a geologist like me.
Danforth, an appealing boyish scholar, runs up to the photograph. He grins at Dyer as the reporters' flash powder lights up their faces. Superimpose, September 1930, Miskatonic University, Arkham, Massachusetts. The center of attention is Professor Gilman Lake, 62, a charismatic natural leader. More flash powder explosions as the yelling press photographers crowd around him. He leans close to Dyer and Danforth.
Dreadful, isn't it, boys? All this hubbub. Our scientific community is hidebound as the Vatican, but we're showmen, really, forced to thrive as vaudevillians.
Forced.
The rest of the group chuckles.
Thank you very much, Atwood. Just grin and bear it.
Bob Gedney, a rakish newsreel cameraman, sits on a table cranking a 35mm motion picture camera. His little brother, Pip, 17, is ready with an extra film magazine.
Come on, Professor Lake. Say something. I'm running out of film.
Pip laughs and the crowd applauds as Lake takes the microphone.
Our trip will be one of discovery. Antarctica promises rich fossil records and with them, important clues to the origin of all species.
Danforth notices a beautiful young woman standing in the shadows under an elm tree. He nudges Dyer, who abruptly leaves the lineup.
In fact, we're seeking our place in the evolutionary ladder, our answers to age-old questions as to our very nature.
Exterior garden, moments later. In the margins of the campus, a woman is walking away.
Anne, wait.
As Dyer catches up to her, she turns to face him. She is visibly pregnant.
Anne, what are you doing here?
I'm sorry, Bill. I shouldn't have.
Dyer gazes to Anne's sad eyes.
I'm leaving for Providence tonight.
No, please, Anne, don't. I'll be back in the summer.
She hands him a key. An uncomfortable silence.
You know how long I've worked to be part of this?
The crowd behind him cheers. The band strikes up a celebratory waltz.
You look happy with them. Wonderful, really. Goodbye.
She kisses him on the cheek and turns to leave. Anguished, Dyer stops her, holds her hand.
You're afraid you'll miss something? This is your child coming, and you'll miss that.
They stand for a moment, looking at each other.
Wait, Anne, just wait. I'll stay with you.
Then let's leave. Now. You'll send Dr. Lake a telegram tomorrow.
I have to do it face to face.
He's not your father, Bill. He may think he has hold on you, but he doesn't. Not unless you give it to him.
Still, I owe it to him, Anne. Trust me. Will you wait?
For the last time, I will.
He kisses her and hastens off. Cut to exterior garden night. The guests sip champagne and admire various contraptions on display. A Dorrier plane, a field laboratory, and a couple of diesel generators.
Should have left then and there. Anne knew it. She knew me better than myself. Unfortunately, so did Lake.
Lake shows the reporters a massive Jules Verne-like drilling apparatus.
Heck of a rig, eh? 5-inch bore, self-cleaning auger. Brilliant idea. Take a bow, Frank.
He hauls forth Pabodie, a thin, well-bred English engineer. More picture-taking.
But it's so big. How do you plan to transport it?
Lake eyes Pabodie, who obediently takes his cue.
It folds into sections. They take no more than 20 cubic feet. The whole thing is transportable on dog sleds.
Always travel light, gentlemen. A couple of ships, a few tons of food, 4 airplanes, and something warm for the winter.
The reporters laugh, eating it up.
Young Dyer, just in time. Join us.
Lake snatches 2 glasses of champagne from a passing tray.
Professor Lake, there is something we need to talk. about my participation.
Lake takes Dyer aside, hands him a drink.
Bill, I'm not blind. I know what you're going through. I, too, was young once. Do exactly as you must.
Very sorry, sir.
Oh, no, please, no apologies. But before you leave, a crate arrived this morning. It'll only take a minute.
Great. From whom? What's in it?
Lake glances over at Danforth, who grins in anticipation.
Something you must definitely see.
Interior, Natural Science Hall, night. Lake leads Danforth and Dyer down a corridor, lined with tall glass cabinets containing bones and pickled specimens. Running the length of the vaulted ceiling is a complete whale skeleton.
Did I ever tell you that they named this wing after my grandfather?
Yes, sir, I believe you did.
And that the library was...
Named after your father. You mentioned that too, sir. Twice.
Lake chuckles. They climb a flight of stairs.
Forgive me, I tend to dwell on it, but it's not easy, you see, having these illustrious dead men weighing on your shoulders. Not easy at all. At your age, time has no meaning. It's as it's of no consequence. But
He unlocks the door to the office.
I'm 52. For the longest time, I had the certainty that mine has been a life lived in vain.
Sir, you have achieved great.
I said I had.
He opens the door. Dyer's jaw sags in astonishment. Interior, Lake's office. Lake's office is wall-to-wall books and glass cases. In the center, something stands, unseen by camera.
The creature was heavily decomposed when fossilization began, but the striations on both flanks clearly suggest the existence of other appendages, you see?
Sir, I've never seen anything like it.
No one has, actually.
Dyer approaches. The display comes into view. A massive, fragmentary fossil of a monstrous creature. Outside, the party is in full swing. Lake glances through the window in the garden. Anne is directly below, waiting.
Want to venture a date?
There are faint traces of a layered stromatolite that would suggest...
Precambrian, late Archean.
Impossible. Nothing remotely as complex as this creature existed on Earth. Must be a fake.
Oh, it's real. That much I'm sure of. You may recall the Randolph expedition.
Yes, sir. 6 months ago. Uncharted stretch of land west of Mount Lister.
Precisely.
Not much came of it, as I recall.
That's what was said, wasn't it?
In fact, Professor Randolph was intimidated by his find. I am not.
Outside, Anne leaves.
If we can dig up further evidence to sustain its providence.
We'll make history, Bill.
Are you interested in that, Dyer? Making history?
Dyer's eyes gleam with excitement. They shake hands. Cut to exterior Antarctic Ocean. Day. 2 whalers sail through frozen waters. The Arkham and her sister ship, the Miskatonic. Exterior, ship's deck at sea. The 2-masted brig, the Arkham, is laden with drills and seaplanes. Smoke curls from a single funnel. A quarter mile away, the Miskatonic sails through heavy seas. Superimpose October 20th, 1930, Antarctic Circle. A small plane flies overhead. Main deck, the Arkham. On deck, excitement mounts as the plane releases 4 bundles which float down in a small parachute. Sailors grab and open them. Inside, sacks of mail.
By mid-October, our ships had crossed the Antarctic Circle. They were wooden mixed whalers, the Arkham and the Miskatonic, reinforced for ice conditions. On board were 4 Dornier airplanes, 8 pneumatic drills, 55 sledge dogs, and thousands of pounds of food, fuel, and equipment.
Captain Douglas, a distinguished man with a white beard, nods to his second-in-command, Higgins, who blows a whistle.
All right, you lot, come and get it.
3 sailors distribute the mail, reading off names of the envelopes and packages.
And yet the most precious object on board every 2 weeks was a simple envelope.
Chesterton, Daniels, Danforth,
Dyer's in the crowd, waiting for his name to be called.
Denton, Friedrich, Horn.
Nothing. Dyer is disappointed.
And the saddest of all things, the lack of one.
Danforth opens a carton of books.
Look, Bill, from my mother. Some Jules Verne, Twain, and the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. Very appropriate. My sister says Boston's having a cold snap. That's funny, huh? A cold snap.
Dyer smiles faintly, hiding his feelings. Suddenly, Pip rushes past, carrying electrical cables. He descends through the galley, almost toppling the cook, who doles hot soup to half a dozen hungry sailors. 4 crew members, amongst them Pabodie and a bearded meteorologist, Moulton, are playing poker at the mess table. Pip whizzes by as we enter the ship's laboratory, where Daniels, Sumner, and Gordon are unpacking a precious fossil. Gordon, a zoologist, is a touchy New Yorker.
Damn, kid, watch it.
Hurry, Dr. Gordon.
Pip scampers down a spiral staircase to the kennels, a cacophony of barking. Their dog two-handers, Ian Larsen, a muscled, tattooed Canadian brawler, dressed lightly despite the cold, and Jan Gunnarson, a lanky blonde Dane. They're feeding the huskies. Pip plugs into the cables as Gedney walks by with his camera.
Oh, thank you, Pip. Now, let there be light.
He snaps on some photo floods. Larsen squints at the sudden glare and notices Pip petting one of the dogs.
Mr. Gedney, kindly tell your brother not to play with those animals. They ain't pets.
Pip backs off.
I'm just saying hello, Dr. Larsen. I didn't.
Those lights, turn them off.
But you're a star, Mr. McTighe, like Rin Tin Tin.
Gedney is rolling film.
Well, Mr. Larsen, your dogs, will they sense a difference down here instead of Canada?
Larsen wears a hearing aid, its microphone pinned to his shirt pocket.
Ice is ice and dogs is dogs. Down, girl, wait your turn.
We've done 3 Arctic expeditions, them and us. 1921, 22, 26, 28.
That's 4.
Larsen grabs a jumbo can of horse meat. He produces a huge gulp-inducing Bowie knife and brutally lops off the top of the can.
I'll say this much about the smarts. I'd take a good canine over a boatload of pencil pushers any day.
Gunnarson nods in agreement, and Larsen grins, a mouthful of chrome teeth. Cut to, exterior, Allen Hills, David Glacier, day. 3 of the portable drills are on operation. Individual crews are in various stages of excavation and fossil recovery.
In a matter of weeks, we secured excellent fossils.
Superimpose, Allen Hills, David Glacier, November 8, 1930. Tons of supplies dot down the barren shore, along with sleds and drilling equipment. At the drill site, 2 graduate students, Ropes and Bordreau, work under Pabodie's supervision. They bring up core samples from deep underground, then pick through it.
Scientific treasures rivaling anything held in the world's finest collections. You may have read about it in our wireless reports to the Boston papers.
Within its layers, specimens of ancient marine life. Shoreline. Sailors transfer the crated finds of the ships by means of cables and breach buoy. 2 of the Dornier planes fly overhead. Danforth helps the portly Daniels board a 3rd plane, ready for takeoff.
But as the weeks passed, Lake remained distant and unsatisfied.
Dyer and Danforth exchange a look. Leake keeps his back to them, gazing at the icy ocean far from shore. Interior ship's laboratory, day. Leake enters a lab. Dyer observes him, unseen from the doorway.
As if all this was just so much routine, and his mind was already further ahead.
Displayed in all of its glory is a large, mysterious fossil.
Waiting for the rest of us to catch up.
Leake sits right before it, in reverie, as if in prayer. Exterior, ship at sea, night. The Arkham and the Miskatonic churn in the dark waters. Superimposed, New Year's Eve, 1931. Distant music can be heard. Interior, mess hall, night. A phonograph plays a merry Danish drinking song. Orendorf, a ruddy-faced Norse giant, sings along. Larsen starts dancing as the rest of the sailors and academics sing the chorus. Dyer seems cheerful at last. Fowler, a kindly chemist sporting a paper hat, hands him a drink.
Here, Dyer, try this.
I'm not much of a drinker, Dr. Fowler, thanks.
Danforth intercedes.
It's a new year. Besides, that's Professor Fowler's own concoction.
In the interest of science, then.
He takes a gulp and then gags.
I'll stick to the prussic acid, Dr. Fowler. It tastes better.
More laughter from the men. Exterior, main deck, same. Leake, swaddled in furs, stands on the rail staring out at the passing icebergs. On the horizon, a moonlit, majestic cloud bank seems to have swirled up the ramparts and towers. Captain Douglas appears, his white beard whipped by the wind.
We've been in that fog bank all night and all day tomorrow.
But it's utterly fantastic. It looks like a city, doesn't it?
A mirage at sea, just like the desert. A glacier becomes a boat. A land blink appears. A land blink appears, and where there is none. Can't trust your eyes this far south.
Leake feels an intermittent light on his face and turns. The Miskatonic is flashing its signal light to communicate with the Arkham.
The Miskatonic has received a message from Boston, and we're having trouble with our radio.
Magnetic field, perhaps?
Perhaps.
McTighe, communications officer, approaches and hands Douglas a piece of paper.
Sure.
The captain reads it in silence and then hands it to Leake.
Sir Dyer, his wife and baby, died in childbirth, both of them.
Leake scans the message. The massive fog bank now towers above the ship, filling the sky like a collapsing skyscraper.
I'll deliver the news.
No, say nothing to him. Not now. I know him well, Captain. I'll take care of it at the right time. Trust me.
The captain acquiesces. Leake pockets the telegram. They're now engulfed by fog. Interior mess hall night. The song ends. Everybody cheers and claps. Atwood steps in.
All right, lads, drink up and simmer down. You're all a bunch of heathens, but God's patience is infinite, so...
The men stop the phonograph and cluster around Atwood.
Join me in a short prayer of thanks. Lord, we ask thy blessing here in this, the earth's farthest reaches.
Exterior Antarctic Ocean night. The ships are barely visible now, swallowed by the thick fog.
May you keep us safe in the many long toils ahead. Deliver us from all evil. Amen.
Atwood's voice dies away. The Arkham plows through the thin ice crust. Chick, chick, chick. A rhythmic sound like a heartbeat. In the interior corridor, same. The empty corridors. Chick, chick, chick.
All through the night we sailed on. Sailors of the past called this Finisterre, the edge of the world.
Interior ship's laboratory, same. Chick, chick, chick.
They believed that monstrous things lived in these waters.
A low-frequency vibration swells, shaking the ship, and in the lab, the peculiar fossil. The vibration seems to emanate from within it like a homing beacon.
That whoever ventured further would fall off the face of the earth.
Dissolve to interior Dyer's cabin, night. Chick, chick, chick. Dyer's face lies up in the bunk, fast asleep. The cabin shakes.
Maybe that's exactly what we did.
Suddenly, on the soundtrack, Jesse Matthews' 1927 My Heart Stood Still fades in. Dream. Dyer slowly wakes up. Camera pulls back to reveal Dyer, sitting placidly on a couch in a parlor. On the table radio, Jesse Matthews sings on. Smiling, Dyer looks into an adjacent room where Anne gently rocks a cradle. She smiles and half closes the door. Now he sees only her shadow and that of the cradle on the wall. He stirs a cup of tea, but the spoon tumbles from his hands. As he picks it up, he notices snow on the floor. Removing one of the floorboards, he finds that the parlor rests on ice. Dyer stares. The shadows in the adjacent room distort, as does the song. The thing in the crib is festooned with squirming tentacles. A gust of wind tears the walls away, revealing a vast, featureless snowscape. In the horizon, a boundless, jagged mountain range.
I felt utterly alone and lost. Alone in the whole wide world.
In his shirt sleeves, Dyer stands in the middle of nowhere. White snow, white sky. In slow motion, snowflakes swirl.
Unfathomable silence all around me. And then for the first time, I saw the dark man.
Figure, shrouded in a fur parka, walks towards him. Cut to interior Dyer's cabin, night. Dyer opens his eyes, still lying in his bunk. He sits up. Hands shaking, he pours himself a glass of water.
And from that nightmare, I awoke into a real one.
He turns on a light and reacts. In the mirror, he sees that he is unshaven and thin, with bony fingers and long nails. Interior ship's corridor continuous. Dyer hurries through the empty corridor. A low, throbbing hum reaches his ears. In the mess hall, sailors are face down at the mess table sleeping. Soup has congealed on their plates, potatoes have sprouted. The rotten meat teems with thousands of worms. Engine room continuous. All engines are running full speed with no one manning them. The boilers are white hot. Bam, bam, bam. The ship's hull groans and shudders.
Oh, Jesus.
Exterior ship's deck night. Dyer explodes onto the main deck. The spars and lines are ghostly shapes shrouded in thick fog. There is no one at the wheel. More sailors and officers lie in a heap on the bridge. Crack! The Arkham smashes through heavy layers of ice, the floes cracking like pistol shots. Then only a few yards away, a rocky cliff goes by. Blind and heedless, the ship is bearing down on land. Dyer screams at the top of his lungs.
Oh, Jesus, help! Somebody help, we're going to...
Bam! The Arkham shudders. Deck cargo breaks loose and topples over the side. A few unconscious sailors follow, dropping 4 stories onto the ice like rag dolls. Decks below. Something has pierced the hull. Seawater shoots into the forward room, washing away the crew and inundating the engine room. Nevertheless, the engines still roar, and out and exterior, the ship yawns sideways with a metallic groan. Interior of the bridge, Captain Douglas staggers to his feet.
Stop all the engines! Shut them down!
Higgins rapidly relays the message down to the engine room. As sailors struggle to kill the engines, the electricity fails and sparks fly. Steam pours out of the firebox. Exterior ship's deck. Inertia pushes the listing ship abeam into a rock-strewn ice field. Men shout in confusion. Dyer lunges for one of the railings as the world tilts under his feet. A cargo box smashes into the chains holding the derrick to the foredeck. Interior corridor. A wave of water sweeps through the dark corridor, dousing the crew and invading the kennels. Waist deep in water, Larsen sloshes from cage to cage, rescuing his dogs. In his arms, he valiantly carries a limp, bleeding bitch. Exterior ship's deck. The derrick breaks loose and slides towards Dyer. It embeds itself with a coaming into the coaming with a deafening clang. Rivets pop, struts bend. Now the back end swings around and strips off the railing, and Dyer along with it. Flying debris opens up a gash on his forehead. Dangling 50 feet above the ground, bleeding profusely, he holds on for dear life. The derrick smashes onto the ice. Dyer's hands are sliding. He's too weak to hold on. Interior hold day. Water gushes into the ruptured forward compartment. Burly sailors stagger into a massive steel door and force it closed, turning a large wheel and isolating the breach. Main deck, Danforth reaches the edge of the deck and reaches down.
Come on, Bill, take my hand. You can do it.
I can't, I'm slipping.
Jesus Christ, man, do it.
The rail gives. For a helpless instant, Dyer is suspended in midair. In a blur, Danforth snags his sleeve. He grunts and pulls. Dyer climbs back on board, out of breath and shaking. His friend embraces him. His hair is long, his cheeks unshaven.
You did it.
It was you, Walter. Thank you.
Dyer sits down heavily. Only then do they notice. The other men are also gaunt and dazed, showing several days' growth of beard. On the bridge, in the binnacle, the compass is spinning like a pinwheel. Distraught, Captain Douglas runs outside.
What's that?
Glinting frost races along the Arkham spars and lines. In an instant, the captain's hand is frozen to the rail. He struggles to pull it free. Dogs charge across the deck. Larsen comes up from below and pushes a couple of sailors aside to the heads for Higgins.
What were you doing, Higgins? Sleeping?
He follows Higgins' gaze down to the waterline. The ship is wedged in among giant hunks of sea ice. As the fog lifts, men gather at the rail.
Sweet Jesus, Carol and Joe. Where the crackling fuck are we?
At the Mountains of Madness. Camera exudes a grand pan of a new world never before seen by human eyes. A dreamlike range of mountains surrounds them. Sharp imperial peaks recede into jagged ranks, bathed in low, slanting sunbeams. 2 distant volcanoes send smoke into a vault of purplish sky glowing with ice clouds. No sound from anyone, just the clinking of Gendry's movie camera as he records everything like a man possessed. Dissolved to black and white footage, panning slowly across the vast, unknown landscape.
The mountains before us surpass anything in imagination. At 36,000 feet, they put Everest out of the running.
Then the film becomes hazy, as if irradiated. Interior screening room, day. In a darkened projection room, Starkweather sits alone, watching reels of black and white film. Gendry's grainy, jumpy shots. Out of the ice, Leake, Dyer, Sumner, Douglas, and Gordon are taking a theodolite reading of the nearest peak.
Pre-Cambrian slate with plain signs of many other upheaved strata, but
Leake looks up through the theodolite. Among the streaks of the shadows, some vague geometric shapes at the top of the mountains.
At the very top, through the clouds, we could make out bizarre structures, unnatural, almost symmetrical. Sumner ventured the possibility of buildings, but back then that seemed impossible.
Interior Dyer's padded cell. Back in the prison ward, Dyer huddled into his bunk bed, shivering and wide-eyed.
Earth could have built them. Who could have lived in such a cold, dead place?
His hand caresses a scar on his forehead.
The answer became evident soon enough. Nothing human. Nothing human at all.
Cut to exterior ice field, the Arkham, day. On the ice next to the Arkham, Dr. Hennessy, an Irish ship surgeon, stitches up Dyer's forehead. Whiskey is the anesthetic of choice. All around them, the sailors pitch tents. Cut to exterior on the waterline, day. Higgins and the work detail are laboring around the ship's perimeter, chopping at the ice with picks and axes. Captain Douglas is frustrated.
Higgins, damn you, man. I thought you cleared the prow.
We did, sir. Just now.
Well, it's frozen solid.
They watch the water around the hull. Crackling and popping, the ice grows back in seconds.
My God, it's growing like ivy. Get all available man down here. Use the welding torches. I want her back at sea now.
Cut to interior ship's laboratory, day. Surrounded by charts and maps, Leake and a half dozen scientists are working on a broken drill.
We need core samples starting in the foothills. Ready?
Pabodie starts the engine, but it clanks to a stop.
Sumner, turn the pipe, see if it clears the housing.
Dyer enters the lab.
Bill! You shouldn't be walking around, my boy.
I need to speak to you, sir.
Not now, Dyer. Pabodie's right. You must rest and...
Sir, have you looked at your watch?
Leake guffaws. To him, the question is a non sequitur.
Dyer, please,
Mine is stopped.
The others look at Fowler, whose bookish demeanor speaks with precision and fastidiousness. He holds up his pocket watch.
6:14 a.m.
Reflexively, Pabodie, Atwood, and the others check their watches. Leake, too.
Every clock in the ship is stopped at the same time. 6:14 a.m., January the 28th.
That's weeks away.
Leake pauses. They look at each other, aware again of their haggard faces.
Please, gentlemen, a magnetic field. An aberration. Clocks damaged on impact. Make a note of it in your journals and move on. We have work to do.
They start the drill again. This time it works. They all cheer. Dyer remains somber. Exterior ice field camp around the Arkham, dusk. Sailors work with welding torches around the hull. Behind them, dozens of tents are now illuminated. McTighe suddenly calls out to Captain Douglas from the bridge.
Captain, I'm getting something.
Interior Arkham Bridge, dusk. McTighe sits at the radio, surrounded by the ship's officers. Dyer listens attentively.
I'm in Miskatonic. Calling Miskatonic. This is research vessel Arkham. Do you read? We need assistance. Present position unknown.
Indeed, something can be heard, but it's faint.
Hey, that's her voice. A voice. I can boost it. Just give me a minute.
Suddenly, a clear voice breaks through. The men eagerly close in. Come in, Miskatonic. Calling Miskatonic. This is a research vessel Arkham. Do you read? We need assistance. Present position unknown. The voice is inhuman, hissing as if in mockery. The static comes like a wheezing cackle. As it dies away, the men stare at one another, at a loss for words. Cut to interior ship's hold, day. The clattering of an air pump starts up. The men fit a copper diving helmet onto Orendorf's head. Underwater forward compartment. The water is a limbo of floating papers, planks, rags, and dead dogs. Bluish acetylene torchlight filters through the diagonal sash of the window. Orendorf drops down to examine the damage. Something odd and bulky has pierced the hull. Impossible to make it out. Suddenly, crack, it breaks free. Orendorf's eyes grow huge. The dark shape rumbles towards him. He twists aside, narrowly avoiding being crushed to death. He plays a light over the 8-foot green obelisk, intricately carved. The tip is crowned with 5 sharp cones incised with circles. Orendorf squeezes through the gash and out into the open ocean. Below the ship, Orendorf floats under the ship and shines his light on the underside of the adjacent ice floes, illuminating a vast, ghostly landscape. As far as he can see, stone monoliths jut out like a jagged black teeth. Cut to Icefield Camp, day. Next to the tent, Gedney opens the equipment case and brings out lenses and filters. Pip squats nearby, developing film in a sealed steel bucket.
Watch it. That footage. It's worth its weight in gold.
Come on, Bob. I've done this a million times.
Pathé, Hearst, movie tone, money in the bank for once.
Larsen and Gunnarson pull out a couple of sleds. They have weapons, a rifle and a shotgun slung across their backs.
Where are you guys off to?
We got hungry dogs. They smell fresh meat.
He points at the horizon. In the fog, they can discern a few distant silhouettes. Pip squints at them.
Jesus, what are they?
Penguins. Biggest I've ever seen.
Pip uses the camera viewfinder to get a closer look.
I've had plenty of penguin, kid. It's tasty.
How would you know? You like dog food.
Larsen chuckles and they take off. The penguins look odd, tall as a man and motionless.
Hey, they're completely white.
Exterior icefield day. The huge penguins, albinos, all face the mountains. Camera pushes closer to one of them, revealing its sickly, translucent skin, webbed by bluish veins. The wings are abhorrent, malformed and elongated, not unlike paws. The eyes are covered by thick, milky cataracts. Cut to exterior forward deck day. Under Pabodie's supervision, 2 of the drills bore deep into the ice. The ship's crane hauls on a chain sling. Captain Douglas, Dyer, Danforth, and Leake watch as one of the stone monoliths comes up, dripping and shining in the moonlight.
Look at that. And if what Orendorff says is true, there are hundreds,
Thousands.
thousands of them right under our feet.
Better pick them up fast, gentlemen. And your equipment, too. As soon as the ship is free, I intend to put out to sea.
And head to where, Captain?
Out of here, sir. That's as good as a destination as any other.
In other words, you still have no idea as to our position.
The Arkham is a whaling ship made of wood and steel. I reckon if we fetched up further south than she's ever been, we don't free her as soon as, and we'll be icebound for months. If she'll last that long, then the ice will crack her wide open and swallow us all. So, we're leaving, with or without your precious cargo.
Black and white footage. 8 stone monoliths covered in runes are laid out on the floor of the tent. The scientists move among them. Leake examines a fine line of the monolith's side. Main tent day. The main tent is a large square with adjoining bays. In the glare of floodlights, Gedney and Pip film everything.
They could be channel markers. I've seen similar motifs, but where?
It's not soapstone. It's way too hard.
Pip turns off the photo lights.
Creeps, these things. Lined up like that, they look like coffins.
Leake hears this and mutters.
Dyer?
He grabs a crowbar from the table and works it into the slit circumscribing one of the monoliths.
Help me out, will you?
Dyer grabs a second crowbar and goes to work.
What are you doing?
Crack. The stone falls open into 2 perfect halves. A stream of green, viscous liquid spills out and a carcass slithers to the floor. The men cover their noses.
Oh, dear God, what on earth?
They stand over the remains of a creature identical to the fossil at Miskatonic U.
God send, gentlemen.
As he kneels.
Don't touch it.
But Atwood, we all prayed for this, did we not? I know I did.
Danforth bolts from the tent, shaking. Exterior crevasse, dusk. 2 dog sleds make tracks pulled along by excited huskies. On board, Larsen and Gunnarson. Gunnarson halts his animals, then rears back. They are at a crack in the ice, a fault line, which is only a half-mile long.
Watch it. Long way down.
The crevasse is a blue-green abyss. Larsen draws a hunting rifle from his sled and trots down the slope. Exterior hillside. Larsen and Gunnarson creep over the hilltop. Penguins everywhere.
See that? Dumb birds. What are they waiting for?
I've never seen anything like it.
I have. Slaughterhouse sheep back home. At killing time, they all face the butcher block. They know the knife is coming.
It looks like they're praying.
Good, because they're going to meet their maker.
Bang. Larsen fires. A penguin topples to the ground. The other birds barely react.
1 shot, and that sucker was 8 foot tall.
Interior ship's laboratory night. Danforth tears through the bookshelves in the ship's lab. He's in a frenzy, throwing books to the floor. He opens a steamer trunk full of books and locates a tattered leather-bound volume.
Sweet Jesus.
On the monster's front piece, there's an engraving of a monster surrounded by runes and symbols. Inside, more engravings of a creature that we see cut in half. Match cut 2, main tent. The specimen cut in half. Brandishing steel knives, Leake, Fowler, and Dyer bend over it. Leake records his comments into a wire recorder. Behind him, all the stone coffins have been opened.
When extended, their membranes resemble serrated wings, 7 feet long, tip to tip, suggesting an avian predator.
Leake moves to another dead creature, pulls at the lid of what looks like a complex eye.
Their multiple ocular globes are protected by a triple membranous lid, probably marine in origin.
Dyer's rubber gloves and scalpel are wet with alien mucus.
These 5 radiating lobes, they're all brain, do you think?
Young man, I'm not even convinced that's the head.
If it is, a cranial cavity of this size would indicate intelligence of a very high order.
Fowler collects some of the green viscous liquid into a test tube.
The species may be unique to Antarctica, a self-contained environment and an isolated population, like the marsupials.
A two-way radio crackles to life.
The storm is kicking up. I want everybody back on board.
Well, much as I would like to stay, I'll leave you gentlemen alone with your friends.
Fowler exits, taking the test tube with him. Dyer and Leake continue the dissection. Exterior ice fields, a tenting camp at night. Fowler marches back to the boat. The tents in the camp are lit from within. The acetylene torches illuminate the prow of the Arkham. Eerie, elongated shadows flicker and jump across the curtains of billowing fog. The howling wind seems to jabber at an unknown tongue. Fowler stops and looks back anxiously.
Leake? Is that you?
The gale carries his voice away. Fowler hurries on board. Interior main tent night. With forceps, Leake pulls away a long, ugly laceration.
Flesh is cut in every case, not torn or decomposed. You see, exactly here. Our fossil was decapitated.
He probes a sliced neck area on another specimen.
Deliberate neck wounds. Something went after the head, time after time.
Predator.
Leake shakes his head and turns off the recorder.
No teeth or claw marks. I believe they're combat wounds, done with a weapon.
Dyer examines the dead creature with growing horror. He shudders and then laughs.
Whatever did this, I'm just glad it's gone.
Cameron pushes in on one of the 8 specimens. Turned away from Dyer and Leake, the long, sagging neck wound is slowly closing itself until the gray, rubbery flesh is smooth and healed over. Cut to exterior hillside night. The fog thickens as Larsen and Gunnarson push their way through the flock of penguins. The enormous birds stand their ground, hooting softly. Dark blood seeps into the snow under the fallen bird, which heaves and flops in agony.
Crack shot, huh? Thing's still alive.
Not for long.
Larsen thrusts his Bowie knife into it and kills it.
Hey, it's got no eyeballs. None of them do. Blind as bats, every one.
Larsen starts gutting it out.
I guess they didn't see it coming then.
He pauses, repelled by a fetid vapor emanating from the insides of the dead bird.
Ugh.
The pearlescent internal organs spill out, are pale and weirdly deformed, more geometric than organic.
My dogs won't eat that.
If they're hungry enough, they will.
He keeps cutting. Gunnarson stumbles. He looks down.
Larsen,
Larsen doesn't pay attention to him.
what you said about the sheep, there's a kind of fence here.
Indeed, the remains of a large, misshapen fence poke from the ice and snow.
So?
Who the hell built it?
Unseen by them, the penguins turn their heads, all of them at the same time. And in the fog, something moves. The dogs leap to their feet, growling. Larsen grabs his shotgun and loads a couple of shells.
Jesus. Smell that?
Cursing, Gunnarson squints into the white void.
Something dead.
A peculiar piping sound reaches their ears. The dogs snarl and tear at the wooden posts, holding them down.
Larsen, the birds
Larsen turns. All the birds face straight at them now.
are looking this way.
The dogs are mad with fear. Gunnarson loads his rifle.
Shh, dogs, simmer down.
The huskies turn on him, shedding his coat. Gunnarson backs away, terrified. As Larsen rolls to his feet, the dogs break free and dash off into the fog.
Molly, God damn it.
There follows a desperate chorus of whining and yelps. Larsen runs after them.
Stay here for Christ's sakes.
Gunnarson follows Larsen, cursing in Danish. In the fog, Larsen finds bright blood and clumps of fur in the snow.
No, no, no.
He hears a sad, long whimper. Half a dog pathetically drags itself towards him, trailing intestines, smearing the snow with clear pink fluid. Gunnarson catches up to Larsen and falls to his knees, devastated.
Oh, Christ.
High in the mist, a dozen tendrils are waving like an undersea protoplasm. More shrill piping sounds. The back of the dog is suddenly writhing sinew. Larsen realizes that the intestines are pseudopods growing from the dog's body. They coalesce into crab-like claws. The creature growls and explodes into a mass of translucent knobs, shooting through ligaments, tendons, and coiling veins. The neck propels outward, growing a series of hungry mouths. A fleshy tongue attaches to Gunnarson and lifts him up off his feet. His gun goes off. Gunnarson disappears into a mass of vibrating teeth, screaming, fusing with it. Larsen instinctively shoots, then reloads. The tendrils keep coming.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
He disappears into the fog. Lost in limbo, the mist is alive with darting movement and inhuman noises. Larsen stumbles and falls, losing his hearing aid. Now he's in white limbo, effectively blind and deaf. The ice is under his feet snaps and he jumps back. The ice cracks with each step. A dark, big shape looms ahead. The tough Dane groans as he sees.
Oh, no. God, no.
The Miskatonic, the Arkham sister ship, sunk into the ice, thickly blanketed in snow. Not a living soul in sight.
Larsen, over here.
Larsen turns. Here comes the accursed apparition. Gunnarsson's deformed body has been fused with other creatures of unknown origin.
No, don't run. You come to me.
Larsen stands his ground, gulping back his revulsion.
Speak up, Jan. I can't hear a thing.
Bam! He shoots the Gunnarson thing point blank in the face. The creature's head explodes in a burst of pink flesh, but instantly recomposes, regaining its shape and awful purpose in midair. As it lands, it sprouts fresh tentacles, mouths, and eyes. Larsen takes it the only way out. He reloads and fires his gun into the ice, blowing open a hole at his feet. Above and under the ice, he jumps in. The tentacles lunge, but upon contact with the water, they sizzle and erupt into bubbles. Hissing, steaming, the thing shrivels as if burned. It squeals. Underwater, Larsen swims away from the sinuous, dark shapes visible above the ice. He swims on, then after some agonizing seconds, he presses the tip of his weapon against the ice and fires. In the ice field, Larsen resurfaces, gasping for air. The shapes race after him. He checks his gun. One shot left. Takes a deep breath and dives back down. Under the ice, Larsen sinks slowly away into the dark.
They were the makers and enslavers of life. They were the great old ones who filtered down from the stars when the earth was young.
Cut to interior ship's lab night. Danforth is reading to the other scientists from a leather-bound volume.
It's all here. The time and space anomalies, the creatures known here as the old ones.
I know that text. Schwab's translation of the Necronomicon, 1875. A collection of pagan rubbish scribbled down by an 8th century Yemeni astrologer, Abdul al-Harazi.
Pabodie takes a look at the book and leafs through the yellowing pages.
Breaks down their alphabet, gives us a place to start.
Start what? It's an embarrassment. You can't possibly rely on such a source.
Under the circumstances.
Pabodie, you astonish me. That book should be destroyed, forgotten.
Not if we want to leave this place.
They all turn to Leake.
Einstein has written about the elastic nature of time and space. What if these creatures harness them as energy or as a tool? If there's a residual effect here, the vortex, then our most fundamental perceptions matter no more.
Yes, the ice encasing the ship is growing faster than we can melt it, because weeks may be passing while we believe them to be just minutes.
Speculation proves nothing.
Then what is your explanation, sir? Mass hysteria? Your beloved Jesus? Practical jokes? The fact is, we're trapped here.
Atwood keeps silent, but his eyes are on fire.
But I believe that puzzle can be solved. Gedney's film shows structures on top of the mountains. I say they're buildings. The answer is at hand. We must fly up there.
Cut to exterior ice field day. The engines on both Dorner planes come to life. The propellers stir the exhaust smoke into the clear sky. The scientists are loading equipment. Gedney and Pip haul their cameras on board. Interior, ship's laboratory day. Leake and Dyer pack some things into the leather flight bags.
Everything we've ever learned, every piece of knowledge out the window. Physics, biology. We'll need a new set of tools, a new language. What will we find up there?
Leake goes into a large headless fossil.
To think that this seemed so important. It was just the first clue. A piece of rubble. Insignificant, really.
Outside, the roar of the airplane engines grows louder.
Sir, we'd better hurry.
We are scientists, Bill. This is what we live for. You couldn't miss this for the world.
But Dyer has grown quiet, remembering. Leake pauses, a moment of strange intimacy.
Are you glad you came along?
I'm grateful. Really, it's all just a bit overwhelming.
Not the answer Leake was looking for, but still.
So am I. There's something.
He presses a small steel key into Dyer's hand.
Go to my stateroom. There's a box on my desk. Look inside.
No?
Now.
He grabs leather bags in his heavy coat and steps outside. Interior Lake's stateroom moments later. Dyer enters Lake's stateroom and opens a box on Lake's crowded desk. He uses the key and opens it. Inside a folded telegram, it's the message from Boston. As he reads it, the din from the planes becomes deafening. Exterior ice field day. Captain Douglas follows Leake into the waiting aircraft.
Follow the coastline. Sumner's headed east. If you go west, then we'll triangulate.
You have my pledge, Captain. We will return with a way out of this.
Keep the coast in sight. The Miskatonic would do that. Looking for a whaling station, a weather outpost.
Captain Douglas, you've made it abundantly clear. It's your ship. I, however, am in charge of the expedition.
Dyer approaches.
Ah, Dyer. Did you...
Dyer throws the telegram at him.
Yes, you've found...
Wham! Dyer punches him in the face. A mist of blood explodes from Lake's nose as he falls back. Dyer is upon him, pummeling him again and again. Danforth leaps in and separates them. Leake stands, dizzy and weak.
Jesus Christ, Bill, what are you doing?
When were you planning on telling me? She was my wife, Leake. My wife.
It's not your fault. Or mine. Can't you see?
Dyer charges again, but Danforth holds him back.
Hannah's dead, and the baby, and he knew. He's known for weeks.
You're here because you knew your priorities. You just won't admit it. You chose what was best for you.
Who are you to say? Everything is a distraction. Art, poetry, love, human life. Just so you've led us to where? Lunacy? Death? Where are you leading these men now, huh? Where?
Knowledge.
Well, you can go without me.
He pulls free and walks away. Leake regains his composure.
Come along, Danforth. Let's go.
Exterior ice field day. The motors belch smoke and the first plane lifts off. Dyer bitterly observes from the ship's deck. The second plane takes off. Cut to cockpit of plane A. Moulton is at the controls. Leake sits next to him. Camera moves into cabin area plane A, where Bordreau, Daniels, and Pip are belted in. Gedney points a camera out the window and cranks off some footage. Black and white footage from the air. The Arkham seems like a toy. It's trapped in the middle of a white finger of ice, surrounded by ocean. Interior plane B, same. Sumner at the controls with ropes alongside him. In the main cabin, Atwood and Gordon peer through the portholes. Behind them sit Danforth and Dr. Pabodie, who slowly opens his eyes.
Are we off the ground now? We're really up in the air.
Is this your first flight, Dr. Pabodie?
The old Englishman nods and hazards a look out the window.
See that? The ice shelf holding the ship? The whole thing is just a peninsula. The open sea is just there.
The plane shakes. Pabodie tenses and Danforth smiles, urging the old man to go on.
And that? What's that?
Down below, a jagged dark crack demarcates the pristine white where the ice peninsula attaches to the mainland.
A fault line from successive melting and refreezing. Oh, here we go.
Buffeted by winds, the plane shakes violently and struggles to gain altitude. Exterior rocky shore same. From the ground, the plane becomes visible, headed for the bank of clouds surrounding the mountain peaks. Tracking over a smooth patch of snow, camera finds a naked, armless Gunnarson on his knees. His skin is translucent and throbbing. He regards the plane with detached cruelty. On his neck, the flesh swells and pulsates. His bare shoulders sprout arms. He slowly stands and staggers like a baby taking its first steps. His legs flex and bend, yielding an eerie, spastic gait. Bit by bit, his walk becomes firm and full of purpose. The Arkham is not far away. Exterior, skies above ice field, same. The plane flies into the clouds. Interior, plane A. Plane B is in and out of the clouds, a mile to starboard. Sumner's voice crackles into the radio. I'm losing sight of you, Moulton. Over.
Watch your compass. We'll be out of this in a second. What now?
The compass disc flips north to south as if pulled by magnets. Interior, cabin, plane B, same. In the half light of the shadows, Danforth's face tenses. It's like flying through wool. Suddenly, sharp rocky slopes glide past only yards away.
Jesus, Sumner, up, go up.
Sumner heaves the stick, practically willing the plane up. Come on, baby. All right, go for it.
Come on, baby, climb.
The plane soars upwards, but a jagged outcropping of rock slices through the fuel tank. A wall of granite looms dead ahead. Cockpit plane B, swearing, Sumner veers away, but this time, the peak tears the landing gear off. In the cockpit, Sumner fights for control, a beeping sound. The gas tank indicates empty.
Sumner, you're losing fuel. Set her down now.
Plane A reappears in the thinning fog.
Where, goddammit, those peaks? A second ago, we were miles away. How the hell did we... Jesus.
As golden light blasts into the cabin, Sumner looks down at...
Moulton, my God, look down.
Cockpit A, same. Moulton and Leake look down upon a city by air. A broad valley covered with eons of ice, bristling with towers, spires, and rooftops. The scientists stare in awe at the alien architecture, indescribably ancient and strange. The buildings vary in size, evidence innumerable honeycombed compartments, wide ramps, and hanging terraces. The airplanes start to descend over a smooth slab of ice that grips into the largest towers. Interior cockpit, plane B. Sumner struggles to keep the plane on course. Descending, the wounded aircraft bobs like a roller coaster car. Interior cabin, plane B. Everybody on board readies for a crash landing. Atwood clutches his Bible and rosary, praying. Exterior ice sheet. Plane B touches down and immediately tilts over, breaking off a wing and describing a jagged spiral into the ice. It pitches off the base of one of the towers. Interior cockpit, plane B. The windshield shatters. An overhanging stone arch rips off of the roof. A blast of wind, then a second impact crushes the cockpit of twisted steel and glass. Exterior ice sheet. The roaring plane comes to a stop. The remaining propeller bites into the ice, then snaps off. 50 yards away, plane B lands smoothly. All the occupants rush to the wreck, which lies steaming in the shadow of a crumbling tower. When Bordreau yanks open the cabin door, Danforth is there. He pushes a dazed Atwood out to safety. Gordon and Pabodie follow.
Are you all right?
Yes, I think so. What about Sumner?
Scratched and bleeding, Ropes crawls out of the cockpit, pulling Sumner's limp body with him. The scientist is covered in blood.
Lloyd?
They roll him over, but it's no use. He's dead.
Oh, no. No, sweet Jesus, what is this godforsaken place?
In the dying light, camera cranes up and widens, revealing more and more buildings, but the size of the dead city is impossible to gauge. Cut to exterior main deck day. Captain Douglas stands at the rail of the Arkham with some of his men. He grimly hands his binoculars to Higgins.
Nothing. Can't even hear them. One moment they're fine, and then
Higgins spots a small, bare figure staggering over the snow, waving.
Sir, it's Gunnarson.
On the ice, Higgins and Orendorff run to Gunnarson, who collapses into their arms. Cut to interior Dyer's cabin, dusk. Dyer is immobile on his desk, staring out a porthole. My Heart Stood Still plays in the phonograph. Fowler appears in the doorway. He carries a couple of wooden cases.
Dyer, I need your help. The fluids surrounding the bodies.
Outside, the twilight dies and is replaced by a cold blue afterglow. Dyer doesn't move.
It contains high concentration of minerals, no nutrients to speak of, but it's loaded with sodium chloride, like high-dose seawater.
No answer. Fowler is about to give up when
It helped preserve them. Primitive form of embalming fluid.
He gets up slowly, stops the record, and turns to Fowler.
Or maybe it acted as a deterrent of some kind.
They were underwater. What would they deter?
That's what we're going to find out.
Cut to interior infirmary, same. The beds in the small ship's infirmary are occupied by injured sailors. A half-conscious Gunnarson looks up from his cot to see Captain Douglas and Higgins standing over him.
I can't feel my fingers. I'm numb.
we'll thaw you out.
Dr. Hennessy comes over. There's no frostbite. He's bruised from head to toe, cuts on his torso, and dies. I've dosed him with morphine.
Has he said anything about Larsen?
Nothing yet. He needs to rest. In the darkness, Gunnarson's face seems to liquefy and rearrange into a new, vaguely inhuman shape.
Deliver us, O Lord, from the harm and the influence of your old enemy.
Cut to exterior ice sheet, alien city, same. Not far from the crashed plane, the surviving scientist stands in a freshly dug ice grave.
So we can find our peace, as has our brother Lord Lloyd Sumner. Now and in the final days, in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord, amen.
After a muttered chorus of amens, Atwood nods, and ropes and Bordreau lower Sumner's body, which is wrapped in tarps. Danforth glances up at a figure wandering the city ramparts high above, carrying a torch. Leake. He studies ancient walls where chiseled pictographs show star-headed old ones, wielding weapons and piloting strange spacecraft. In the flickering torchlight, the creatures seem to jump out. Danforth approaches him.
Danforth,
Sir,
take a look. They organize their narratives in cartouches defined by these diagonal lines, see?
you should go down, sir, as a matter of respect.
Once you read them, right to left, upwards, it's clear enough.
One of our party died, sir.
Thank you, Danforth. Yes, I noticed. Contrary to what you may think, what anyone may think, I did. I'll do my morning back in Boston. We worry because our wristwatches have stopped. But these beings, they've stepped across time, crossed over from other worlds.
Leake continues up a steep ramp. Danforth follows.
They were scientists like us, only more so. Their minds were creative and hungry. They landed here and built all this. Or more accurately, they had it built for them. Look.
Leake shows a strange mural representing a fearsome globular creature.
A second race, a slave race, beasts of burden. Shoggoths, if we were able to believe this. Mutable creatures bred to perform any task. If they needed extra arms, eyes, fingers, mouths, they grew them. They were capable of mimicking any form of life, down to the smallest detail. Now here, you can see the writing, the craftsmanship changing here, right here on this wall. These beasts rebelled against their masters. A war ensued. These are now their pictograms, their story.
A war.
These Shoggoths worshipped an ancient deity, a creature so malevolent that even the old ones were afraid.
They reach the top of the rampart. Leake points to a plaza below. At the center of the plaza, carved out of a center pillar 100 feet high, a statue of a primordial creature, Cthulhu, a wild congeries of tentacles, claws, and wings.
And the outcome of that war?
In time, we'll know.
Cut to interior infirmary night. Dr. Hennessy moves along the sleeping wounded men. He pauses to feel Gunnarson's forehead. As Hennessy leaves, Gunnarson's eyes open. He looks at a sleeping sailor in the adjacent bed. A shadow falls over the man's face. Gunnarson's hand appears, sprouting tentacles which enter the man's nostrils and ears. After a quick, wordless struggle, the sailor's face melds with Gunnarson's rubbery fingers. Another man wakes up to find Gunnarson and the sailor standing at the foot of his bed, shirtless and conjoined at the waist. A stump sprouts tentacles, one of which grows in eyes at the tip. Before the man can say a word, a fresh eruption of tentacles stifle his cries. Cut to exterior Arkham ice field at night. In the blowing snow, the Arkham's starting to look like a ghost ship encased in ice.
Barometer's bottomed out. You should wait till dawn.
Radio room, same. Captain Douglas, Higgins, and McTighe huddle around the radio.
And hope for a weather break. Over.
I will, but I can't carry us all. The load would be too much.
Exterior ice sheet, abandoned city, night. Moulton's in his cockpit using the airplane radio. Gordon listens outside, bundled up against the blowing snow.
I'll have to make 2 trips.
Fat chance.
Just keep a runway clear, okay?
Now, tell him about the fuel.
Moulton sighs, and then...
One more thing. We were only 30 minutes in the air, but we've used more than half our fuel.
Radio room, same. The men look at each other, confused.
Moulton, you've been gone for 10 hours.
Exterior ice sheet, abandoned city. Moulton nods wearily. He half expected something like this.
Listen to me, Moulton. Leave all cargo behind. Split into 2 groups. Luck of the draw. Fly back with the first group as light as you can. You hear? As light as you can.
Yes, sir. We'll be ready.
Interior communications deck night. Captain Douglas sighs as McTighe signs off.
Clear the runway. Ready the crew to mark a perimeter with landing lights.
Suddenly, a door opens and snow flies in. Higgins turns to see. Surprise! Gunnarson. Behind him, the other men from the sickbay.
What are you all doing out of...
Gunnarson's shadow in the wall is a coxbomb of boiling tentacles. In a flash, the wriggling mass of flesh catapults into the room. Off of Captain Douglas's screams, we cut to interior ship's laboratory. Dyer enters the onboard laboratory and collects pH measuring equipment. Fowler sees him. They hear a noise. Dyer peeks out into the corridor. Nothing. Interior ship's corridor is night. Puzzled, Dyer steps out into the empty hallway. The bulkhead lights flickers. A door is ajar. Dyer opens it. Interior empty quarters. Nothing. But a few things have been overturned. Interior ship's corridor same. Now one of the injured sailors from the sick bay stands at the end of the corridor, mouth moving silently.
Can I help you?
The man stumbles towards him. In the shadows, camera glimpses 3 thick strands of flesh extending from his back and legs into an adjacent bay.
What is it?
Dyer turns to him.
One of the men from sickbay.
Fowler, carrying the equipment, peeks out. No one is there.
Where?
Maybe he found his way back.
The light flickers again. A rhythmic metallic noise grinds at the end of the corridor. Chewing. Cut to exterior ice field near the main tent, night. Carrying the equipment case, Fowler and Dyer walk through the blowing snow into the main tent. In the main tent, the 8 entombed old ones rest peacefully in steel tables. The wind howls. The tent's string of light bulbs flickers.
Uh-oh. Here, let me...
Fowler lights an oil lamp as Dyer enters the adjacent bay, separating with a flap of canvas.
I'll set up a bench in there.
Fowler, alone now, goes to the radio.
Captain Douglas, this is Fowler. The generator's acting up. Hello? Captain Douglas?
A sibilant, raspy voice comes back, mixed with static. Tekali! Fowler is taken aback. He snaps off the transmission. Interior tent bay night. Dyer opens up a pH test kit on the work table. It's a portable wonder full of siphons and turning gears.
Okay. Bring samples from each one and I'll get started.
Interior main tent night.
Yes, coming.
Fowler gathers some flasks. For a moment, the supine things are all out of view behind him. A rattle. Fowler rolls around. Nothing has changed, except a scalpel lies on the floor discarded. Carrying the flasks, Fowler picks it up. When he straightens up, all the things are upright, standing behind him. Tall, gray, and slender, they glide silently to block his escape. One of them whips out an pendant and snaps the scalpel out of his hand. Another flips him off his feet. The tent bay, same. Dyer hears glassware breaking and a muffled voice in the other section of the tent. The lights go out, leaving only an oil lamp.
Oh, great. Dr. Fowler?
Suddenly, an odd shadow crosses the other side of the tent flap, then the clink of stainless tools on an autopsy table. He gets up. More noises, snipping and cutting. Dyer cautiously approaches the canvas divider and pushes it aside. Interior main tent same. Dyer recoils.
Dear God, no.
Standing over a writhing body of Dr. Fowler, the alien entities conduct their own brutal dissection. One of the old ones turns an inquisitive gaze at Dyer. Fowler's leg drums on the autopsy table. Dyer screams and bolts outside. The creature follows. Exterior ice field night. Outside, a snowstorm from hell. In the ice field, fires are blazing. Men push past, pursued and engulfed by shape-shifting masses of flesh. Near the boat, gunshots and screams. The tentacled old ones pursue Dyer, crawling on its wings like a bat on land. Running blindly through the maze of tents and dog pens, Dyer rounds a corner and finds Gunnarson, or what's left of him, affixed to a globular entity, methodically impaling the frenzied dogs on its spidery legs. A gaping maw at the center of the Gunnarson thing ingests them, dissolving their bodies in gelatinous tissue. The old one rounds a corner, a pause. The two ancient enemies are face to face. Screeching, the Gunnarson thing attacks, engulfing its adversary in a tide of flesh. Dyer runs to a dozen of misshapen but recognizable crew members as converge upon him. He doubles back. Behind the tent, suddenly, Dyer stumbles upon Larsen, who whirls on him with a shotgun, one of several he has strapped to his back.
Oh, Jesus, no. Please don't.
You're scared. That's good. Help me out here, quick.
He's stuffing the burlap sacks into his backpack. Dyer blindly follows suit with no idea why. A roar as the adjacent tent collapses.
Move!
He shoves Dyer aside and fires his shotgun into the oncoming thing. The creature screeches and bubbles, twisting with agony.
Follow me.
Gunnarson leads Dyer to the dog sled laden with burlap sacks. He reloads the shotgun and tosses it to Dyer.
You fall off, you're on your own. You understand? I ain't coming back for you.
Bam! Larsen fires off a second shotgun at two approaching creatures, disintegrating them. He pushes Dyer into the sled.
Hold on, egghead.
He cracks a whip and the dogs start pulling. As the sled gathers speed, Dyer ventures a look back at the chaos surrounding the Arkham.
I thought of hell, as I conceived of it as a child, a place of chaos and damnation.
The sled moves towards the mountains, which are black against the purple sky.
No one could have imagined what was at hand, nor how much worse it would get.
Cut 2. Interior ice sheet abandoned city. Plan A is covered by a tarp. The blizzard is brutal. Wind drones through the city's stone canyons and empty avenues like a pipe organ. Men have set up a campsite in a vaulted stone gallery. Standing next to a bonfire, Moulton reads from a handful of straws.
I'll fly back as soon as I can. You have my word, but for now, with no argument, short straw stays, long straws go.
The men draw straws. Atwood gets a long one, so does Danforth, Gedney, Daniels, and Leake. Gordon gets a short one, so do Ropes, Bordreau, Pabodie, and Pip.
If it clears, we leave at daybreak. No equipment, no extra load. Wait, please. I accept the rules, but my brother, he should be on that plane, not me. I'll stay behind. Fine by me, son.
No, we stay together.
Pip grabs Gedney, imploring.
I'm not leaving without you. Never. You hear me? Never.
Shh, it's okay. I'm here for him. You understand? I have nothing to offer.
Gedney fumbles through his pockets, producing a pocket watch and a modest leather wallet.
But what I have is yours in exchange for your seat.
Silence. No one's willing to trade. Atwood looks away, ashamed, but afraid. Leake notices this, full of foreboding. Exterior ice field night. More blowing snow. Larsen's dog sled approaches the base of the mountain, speeding towards a rock wall. Dyer grows nervous and looks to Larsen, who cracks a whip, demanding more speed from the Huskies.
Larsen, my God, you...
Shut up, egghead. I'm driving.
The sled accelerates down a slope, straight at the wall. Dyer closes his eyes and curls up, but at the last second, a narrow passage comes into sight. They whiz in. Interior rock passage continuous. The sled flies through, almost scraping the rough walls.
Oh, Jesus.
Larsen is delighted. He cracks the whip even harder as the passage widens, coming into a vast ice cave. A natural amphitheater filled with colonnades of sparkling stalactites. Larsen stops the sled, and Dyer looks around.
Where the hell are we?
Somewhere safe. I found it by accident.
He points at a hole blasted in the ice floor. Dark water is visible below.
We're about 4 miles from the ship. I've been gathering provisions all day.
Where have you been? We should go back, help them.
We can't help them. We'll help ourselves. Those things back there, they've probably taken the whole crew by now.
Not everyone. No, don't say that.
Look, you saw enough, so shut up and meditate on it. Or make notes, or whatever your professor brain wants to do. Me? I'm tired. Grab a fur and lie back. If we talk, we'll do it in the morning.
Dyer obeys. He plops down on some furs from the sled. Then he hears a rustling noise deeper in the cave.
Listen.
But Larsen is busy unloading the sled. Dyer grabs his gun and moves towards the noise. Something moves in the darkness. He snaps a torch and comes face to face with an albino penguin. He screams. Larsen runs over and pushes him away.
Shut up. Are you crazy? It's just a fucking penguin. The dumbest bird on the planet.
More noise. Then, half a dozen eyeless albino penguins waddle out of the tunnel, clucking and squawking.
They have no eyes.
So, what's the difference? Caves, tunnels, they're pitch black.
Caves? There's more?
Far as I could tell. Mountain's full of them.
He sees Dyer shivering, near shock.
You okay?
The thing,
It scared you?
a little.
Bang! Larsen shoots one of the penguins in the head. It topples over.
There. Now for the last time, egghead. Shut up and go to sleep.
Dyer lies down a few feet from the carcass of the penguin. Its spasms cease as it dies. Exhausted and horrified, Dyer turns away and closes his eyes. Exterior mountain range, 3 views. The snow whirls through the canyons and peaks of the Mountains of Madness. Fade out. Fade in on the exterior ice wall in abandoned city, dawn. Dawn breaks. Pale sunlight creeps up through the colossal black monoliths and angular turrets. Moulton and Gordon pull the tarp from the plane, while Atwood, Gedney, and Pip clear the path in fresh snow. Exterior ice sheet, abandoned city. The plane's engines drone, ready for takeoff. Danforth stands by the boarding stairs. Gedney tearfully embraces his brother. Leake approaches them.
There's no good reason for the two of you to be separated. So here, take this.
He hands Gedney his long straw.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
It's quite all right.
Gedney proffers his watch and wallet.
A deal's a deal, sir.
Please, put them away. Nothing a good Christian wouldn't do?
There's not an ounce of Christian faith in you, Leake. You don't fool me. You want to stay.
Leake embraces Danforth, clutching the Necronomicon.
I hope you don't mind me holding on to this for a while.
Danforth nods, keeping his emotions in check.
I don't lend out my books. Tonight on the Arkham, you'll give it back, understand?
Tell Dyer when you see him. Tell him that I'm very sorry. I really am.
Leake smiles sadly.
Tell him that I felt the road to greatness is paved with old glories like me. I didn't want him to be left behind.
You'll tell him yourself, personally. I know you will.
Daybreak. The plane takes off. The men left behind watch as it gains altitude. Interior plane's cabin, same. The plane flies over the towers. The view below is soon obscured by clouds. Atwood focuses on his Bible. Gedney puts his arm around Pip as the sun pierces the cabin, bathing their haggard features in pink daylight. Exterior sky above the city. As the plane disappears, the sun plays over the city. In ice sheet, abandoned city, the ruins are gleaming. Leake smiles and turns to Gordon.
Praise the Lord, gentlemen. You're stuck with me.
He gathers some rope and climbing equipment.
What are you doing?
We're going for a walk.
Cut to exterior ice field day. Dyer sleeping.
It was then that I had the dream again.
Suddenly, he opens his eyes and gets up. He's alone in the ice field. He's wearing street clothes, like in the last dream.
Felt the cold, the loneliness just as before, and I looked for the dark man. Yes, again I found him.
In the distance, the fur-covered figure of the dark man.
Without knowing why, without really wanting to, called out.
Dyer waves his arms.
Over here! Over here!
The figure stops, slowly turns, then walks directly at Dyer.
And it was then that I saw my mistake. That thing. It imitated her shape, her walk, but it was not human.
It comes close, its hooded face remaining in shadow. Dyer backs away, frightened.
I knew somehow that whatever horror lurked under that hood, if I ever saw it, would drive me mad.
The man stretches out his arms, fingers clawing the air. Camera pushes into the hood with a roar, barely visible as a boiling mass of flesh, a screaming void. Cut to interior ice cave day. Dyer opens his eyes. He's in the cave.
Bad dream, egghead?
Larsen is busy with an improvised table made of wooden boxes. One of the dogs regards Dyer with curiosity as he gets up.
There's a tin of biscuits over there. Boiled beef, some rum.
Dyer nods, still sleepy. The ice cave is spectacular. Half of the ceiling is pure ice, allowing light to filter in, as if from a church window. Dyer grabs a biscuit and takes a swig of whiskey.
Where'd this come from?
You don't want to know.
Larsen is refilling dozens of shotgun shells with white powder. Next to him are 5 sawed-off shotguns.
You want to help? Sit down and do.
Exactly what you do.
Look, kid, we're screwed, all right? Get to work, and I'll tell you what I know.
He hands over a box of shells.
Crack them open and empty half the load, just half. Then pour this in.
Dyer grabs a powder and looks at it. Tastes it.
Salt? You're using salt?
Dyer starts sawing off a shotgun barrel.
Does the job. One of those things jumped after me into the sea, melted and squealed.
Dyer reflects, trying to figure it out.
Soluble salts. Metal and non-metal compounds. Chlorine, bromine. Foreign to their species. Elements existed before them.
Goes good on beef, too.
He takes a bottle of rum from Dyer and gulps down a quarter of it.
You know, in Canada, that's how the kids kill leeches. A little salt. We love to watch them squirm.
He smiles a mouthful of steel at memory, then passes the bottle back to Dyer.
You should light a bonfire.
I don't advise it.
It's daylight. They couldn't.
Larsen motions for him to be silent. Tries the shotgun for balance.
Kid, let me show you.
Interior ice cave tunnels day. Larsen guides Dyer to a natural ice chamber. Dozens of tunnels and passages lead off to the heart of the mountain. They cross a narrow stone bridge, which crumbles beneath their feet. Dyer cautiously peers out into a huge chasm.
The whole mountain is riddled with tunnels, like moles. Ice, rock, same difference. They go on for miles.
Leading where?
Where? I don't give a shit.
He puts his hand on a rock, feels a rumble.
Now, lean over. Don't move.
The rumble grows until the whole area shakes. A few stone blocks break loose. Several stories down, they splash into the water. Terrified, Dyer bolts, but Larsen holds him into place.
Under Kindle, Central, Harvard, South Station under Washington, under Park Street.
Larsen clamps a hand over Dyer's mouth. A massive shoggoth slips through a tube directly below, separating them by only a few inches of clear ice. Its many eyes are moving, scanning. As it passes,
You can move now.
Dyer collapses, trembling.
The fuck were you mumbling?
Sorry, all I could think of subway stops back in Boston.
Larsen gestures for silence. They hear a sputtering engine.
It's a plane. They're coming back.
Exterior ice field Arkham. The air is dancing with snowflakes. Dyer and Larsen exit the cave and run up the hill to see the plane, flying dangerously low to the ground, buffeted by the wind. Cut to interior cockpit, same. Moulton and Danforth are white-faced, seated in the cockpit. The ground blurs by.
Sorry. Oh, what the hell is going on? They didn't clear a runway.
Jesus.
The engine is coughing. On the dash, the fuel level reads empty.
Arkham, this is Moulton. Do you read? We've no clear runway. I repeat, no clear runway. Over.
No answer. The engine restarts with a roar. The plane momentarily heaves and then drops.
We're going down one way or another. Tell everyone to brace for it.
Exterior frozen lake day. Pitching like a toy, the plane drops over a range of foothills. 50 men from the Arkham stand like statues in the snow watching the plane come down. But there's something wrong with them. They all seem oddly similar. Cut to the plane landing. It plows through the fresh snow, sliding for hundreds of feet like a rooster tail of white. Interior of the cabin, chaos. Yelling with fear, Pip embraces Gedney. Steam and smoke belch from the engines where they come to a stop. Exterior ice field. The impassive Arkham sailors immediately march towards the plane like choreographed puppets. In the cockpit, Danforth goes back into the cabin. Moulton looks angrily at the approaching throng.
God damn them. What are they doing out there? Standing around like morons. They're going to catch hell.
He jumps out of the cockpit and heads towards the group, and all his bravado fades.
No.
Interior of the cabin, a scream from outside.
Hear that?
What?
A scream.
I didn't hear.
Shh! Someone's coming.
Outside, low murmurs. Suddenly, the cockpit door opens. Snowflakes fly in. Pause. Then Gunnarson enters.
Oh, Jesus. Gunnarson. It's just Gunnarson.
And so it is. But the nightmare begins. Pip turns to find a second Gunnarson, also staring at him from a window. And standing next to him, another Gunnarson. And further down, leering from the cockpit windshield, 3 more.
Jesus Christ almighty.
The Gunnarson thing standing in the doorway grins, but the grin expands into a massive mouth, an opening snout shining with endless rows of teeth. Arms extend like fleshy vines, grabbing Gedney. Pip screams. All the faces at the window scream too, as if in mockery. But the mouths meld and flesh fuse, and all the hungry maws press against the window glass like a diabolical parody of a playful child. Danforth grabs Pip and pulls him away. Now an inquisitive blob of protoplasm oozes up from behind the Gunnarson thing and surveys the cabin with a dozen filmy eyes. Danforth and Daniels struggle with the emergency door at the rear of the plane. The snow has jammed it. Danforth and Daniels redouble their efforts and manage to crack it open. Danforth pushes Pip out.
Run, Pip, run.
The kid does. A few steps until a voice calls him.
Pip, don't leave me.
Pip looks back. Gedney is leaning against the side of the half-buried plane, apparently in pain. Inside, Moulton helps Atwood to his feet. Behind them, Danforth. Outside, he climbs out. At a porthole, Atwood watches helplessly as Pip heads towards his brother. Inside, Daniels is next. The mass of flesh re-enters the cabin. Hairless dog heads bulge from the massy flesh, and trailing the rest of the body, they lunge. A tentacle wraps around Daniel's boot. He brings up a hunting knife and slices it open. A spray of goo hits him in the face. Bellowing, he jumps out. Enraged, the thing barrels through the cable of the cabin like a freight train, pushing back into the seats. Outside, Pip reaches his brother, who has fallen to his knees. Inside, Atwood screams.
No, Pip, get back.
But it's too late. Gedney grabs Pip, or rather, the Gedney thing does. Its hungry flesh traps the boy's head. Gedney's face becomes a proboscis full of grinding appendages. Gedney's legs are connected to a thick tentacle to the thing inside the plane, like an obscene hand puppet. He rises, still gripping his brother and prey. The plane's fuselage splits open, ripe with swollen invading flesh. The hideous Shoggoth surges out. Danforth grabs Atwood and starts running. Daniels is a few steps ahead of them. The thing splatters into the snow and resolves into 3 Gunnarsons and 3 Gedneys, combined with dog parts and crinoid creatures. They rush over to the ground, rolling over like Moulton like an ocean wave. He disappears. Danforth, Atwood, and Daniels run as new faces bloom in the jelly. Pip and Moulton several times over, their slack, dead faces shimmering and rippling. And for an instant, they all become Gunnarson, then Gedneys, and watching as the remaining humans flee towards the Arkham. The humans, running. Atwood is panting, having trouble keeping up. Then, among the shredded tents, a voice stops him.
Danforth!
It's Danforth and it's Dyer and Larsen, each brandishing twin shotguns. Other guns are strapped to their backs. Larsen levels his weapons at them.
No, please don't. No.
It's us. To be free.
Larsen holds Dyer's arm.
Wait.
We know them.
Don't be so sure. You, stay right there.
He tosses them one of the burlap sacks.
All of you, eat that.
Danforth falls to his knees and rips open the bag.
What's this?
The bag contains nothing but salt.
Go on, chow down.
Atwood looks at him pleadingly.
You don't understand. The plane. These things. There are things.
Something slides into the cold mist, moving towards them.
Shut up and eat some salt, or you'll get some from here. You're all too smart for me. Now, eat a good handful, and then we'll see who's who.
They watch wearily as Atwood and Danforth each take a fistful of salt and gulp it down. They cough and retch, but nothing more.
You bastards, are you satisfied now, are you? You're inhuman, you hear me?
Inhuman? You're funny.
Daniels watches in silence.
You too, Dr. Daniels.
Daniels squeals, his whole torso exploding into a million tentacles. Wheeling around, Larsen shoots him. The Daniels thing bubbles up and squirms. As wide-eyed men back away.
But that thing, it only touched him for a second.
Larsen listens. Movement.
Now they'll come after us. Let's move.
They run off. On the snow, Daniel's sizzling remains melt away. Cut to interior abandoned city, day. Leake and his companions work their way to the gargantuan set of steps, like toddlers inching their way to a massive room downstairs. Interior biology room. At the bottom, they find themselves in a round chamber pierced by blasted out holes, as if it had been invaded by gigantic moles. The men peek into the endless tunnel. All quiet. They move on. Mammoth sculptures of unknown gods have toppled like outside trees. The walls are tilted with bumpy, translucent shapes emanating a soft green glow.
Bioluminescence.
He presses his hand against the panel. He pulls away. A lingering silhouette of his hand throbs and fades.
Reacting to the heat of our bodies.
As they reach the center of the space, they find a web of stalactites and stalagmites reaching out of the broken dome high overhead. Tangled within, a petrified fusion of bones from at least 80 feet high, 100 feet wide at the base.
Are those bones?
Awed, the men come closer.
There, a pterodon skull, almost complete.
Gordon points at an enormous, club-like femur.
Allosaurus.
The men spread out, marveling at mollusks, crustaceans, skeletal birds, and mammals.
Iguanodon.
Ropes brings out a manual drill and samples the mound. A large, sharp chisel finishes the job.
Petrified, fused together by mineral drips. It would take hundreds of millions of years to create a formation of this size.
Pabodie illuminates the mastodon skull.
There are higher mammals here.
Lake's flashlight beam illuminates a complex mural spiraling its way up the column.
All life on Earth, actually.
What are you saying?
Lake scrutinizes pictograms of familiar animals on Earth. Beneath each one, there's a schematic of muscles, bones, and nervous systems.
Classified here. Insects, mammals, reptiles, birds.
He brings out the Necronomicon and deciphers.
These beings, on the first day, created the birds. On the second day, they created the fish and the animals that inhabit the sea.
Ropes and Gordon look at the skeletal remains in growing amazement.
No, stop. Where are you going with this?
Where do you think?
Dear God in heaven.
There, fused with other creatures of the mound, a human skeleton is perfectly visible. Lake is serene.
Yes, I knew it. Humbling, is it not?
The grinning skull trembles. A vibration. Light hits their face. It emanates from one of the doorways across the hall.
You feel that? Heat.
They can hear distant noises. Gordon and Ropes pull shotguns from their packs. Interior machine room continuous. They enter an even larger chamber as big as Rome's Colosseum. Everywhere, water is dripping, and great machines are humming. Massive platforms swing around and lock into place. Copper spheres float overhead, silently orbiting like burnished planets. This area, too, has been tunneled. The men are sweating. They throw off their backpacks and open their parkas.
Jesus, it's like an oven in here.
Look.
He points to one of the machines. It's broken and gutted out. Organic-looking ducts spill onto the floor. Diffuse arcs of electricity radiate from it, forming a field of electricity. Debris hovers around it, suspended in midair, as if fixed in a still photograph. Fascinated, Ropes takes a step forward, inserting his hand into the crackling energy. He grimaces in pain as his hand shrivels before his eyes. Before he can speak, he's sucked inwards, his body drying up as if vacuumed from within. Gordon heads up to rescue, but Lake stops him.
No.
The clothing, now rags, falls away from Rope's body. The mummified husk shrinks into an unrecognizable blob in midair. The men stand in shock, disbelieving. Lake pulls out his watch and moves towards the distortion.
Stay away from there.
The watch hands accelerate as Lake gets close. Then he throws it at the machine. It arcs and stops in midair.
There. The distortions, they emanate from here. If we find a way to shut this down...
Lake leans against an organic console filled with knobs and protrusions. A hum as they unfold a metallic clamp trapping his hand. One of the spheres descends, spins, and pops open above Lake's head as if generating power. Lake panics.
For the love of God, Gordon, help me!
The sphere projects a beam of blinding light down onto Lake's head. His arms and body become translucent. He screams. Dissolved to a vision. Images come in rapid succession, the old ones creating life in a strange room using glassy receptacles charged with electricity and liquids. Alien alchemy at work. Bones and muscles weave, intertwine in each receptacle, forming fish, fowl, and mammals. Then, a faint, otherworldly clamor reaching Lake's ears, a chorus of 10,000 voices. as he finds himself gazing into an alien city at the moment of glory. Gleaming spires, ziggurats, temples, even the mountains look new and majestic. The lower slopes are covered in green jungle. The skies are alive with soaring, star-headed creatures gliding into majestic formation, peeling out from one radiant golden cloud, down into a maelstrom of war. The broad, smoke-filled causeways of the city are covered with surging undulations of slime, which fling up long tentacles to ensnare the winged aliens and pull them in and wrap hungry orifices over their wriggling, helpless bodies. The Shoggoths decapitate the old ones. Underwater, the stone coffins splash down away from the reach of the Shoggoths. As they bob gently in the water, a camera comes up. The distant mountains are in flames. On the horizon, amidst the columns of smoke, a massive thing as tall as the mountains seems to undulate. As it rises, the flashback ends. The ray beam stops and the sphere retracts as silently as it descended. The contraption that held Lake's hand folds back into the console. Lake staggers, blinking and disoriented. His arms and torso are still translucent. Pabodie and Bordreau grab Lake as he collapses. As Gordon runs over,
We have to warn the others. The ship, they must leave without us.
Calm down. You're all right.
No, the ones we found underwater. They were heroes, warriors, injured but alive. The old ones were keeping them safe.
Safe from what? I'm sorry, Dr. Lake, but...
Lake seizes Gordon by the collar.
Will you hear me? The Shoggoths, they need those bodies for summoning, to bring forth something much worse than them. They needed the bodies to awaken their god. And we helped them.
Shoggoths? Summoning? What on earth? I say we go back to the service and wait. Yes, wait. For Moulton to get back.
Bam! A massive Shoggoth explodes out from one of the tunnels. It grabs and devours Pabodie in mid-sentence. Gordon drags Lake away. Bordreau follows. They run into a gallery. From other tunnels, Shoggoths spring out, emitting shrill piping sounds, displaying pink beaks lined with rows of teeth. They snatch up Gordon, then Bordreau. Lake rounds a corner. Catacombs. They reach a room resembling a burial vault lined with crypts containing an ancient skeleton. Hearing a sound, Lake lies down in a niche and keeps still. A Shoggoth enters the vault, sniffing. Then it withdraws. Lake exhales and looks up. He discovers a hole right above him. A rumble. Something plunges down on him. Whap! He's taken. For a few terrifying moments, camera follows upward as his body is devoured and assimilated. Then, the Shoggoth gains speed and disappears into the darkness. Fade in. On the exterior of the ice field, under a star-filled velvet sky, a dozen oversized albino penguins face the glowing mountains. The birds are rigid and silent, as if in anticipation.
What the hell are they doing?
Exterior ice field panorama, same. Larsen and Dyer are on the hilltop. Danforth and Atwood stand behind them. The Arkham are a mile below, cloaked in the mist. Through binoculars, flames are visible at the ship's waterline. Spidery humanoid aberrations crawl into the ship's hull, busy as a beehive.
They're burning diesel fuel. I think they're freeing the ship.
Once at sea, these beings will spread, infect the world.
At best, we're all mad, inhabiting a nightmare. At worst, we'll see them reclaim the planet.
What if we keep them where they are, surrounded by seawater? We're on an isthmus, inherently unstable.
Danforth points to the dark, jagged fault line running through the ice.
And that's an ice fracture.
I saw it. It's deep.
We set charges and blow off the entire peninsula.
Using what?
Dynamite. We have enough dynamite to do it.
We do?
The Miskatonic had a ton of it.
The Miskatonic?
You heard me.
Cut to exterior of the Miskatonic day. Four small figures, Dyer, Atwood, Larsen, and Danforth, enter the brooding, frozen hulk of the Miskatonic. In a hold in the cavernous forward hold, the men pry open a large wooden crate, exposing a fresh supply of dynamite. Larsen handles one of the sticks. It crumbles to dust.
Shit. It's like it's been here for ages.
It has.
They sort through the boxes. A third of the sticks are still intact.
Question is, how much is enough?
They all dig in, amassing a pile of explosives.
I have something to collect too. I won't be a minute.
Interior, Miskatonic corridor, same. Atwood, shotgun in hand, walks through the frozen corridors of the Miskatonic. Loose scraps of paper float by, moved by an unseen breeze. Engine room, the rusty doors open. Atwood peeks into the engine room. Dead, cold, with icicles hanging from the boilers. He moves off. Camera pans to reveal a gaping hole. Something soft and wet emerges from it and regards the open door. Miskatonic chapel, same. Atwood enters the ship's chapel and puts out a shotgun. Below the large wooden cross, it quietly crosses himself. Behind the altar, he breaks through the sheet of ice and opens drawers and cabinets. At last, he finds what he's looking for, a Bible. As he turns to leave, he sees something briefly reflected in the cracking glass of the cabinet. He spins around to witness that glistening shape resolve into the shape of a man standing in the doorway. It's Leake. He gazes balefully at Atwood.
Leake? How did you...
The Leake thing laughs, a wet, horrible noise.
Not Leake.
The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures.
Atwood.
He utters the name as if it were an unfamiliar memory.
Leake is here with us. He wants you to know that it was them, the old ones, who brought life to this planet, not your god.
The Leake thing shimmers and glides up to Atwood.
Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
They created life many times on many worlds. First, out of hunger. Then, out of boredom, they created men. Yes, they made you a house pet. They gave you doubts and fears and hopes and faith. It made you more entertaining to watch, like a puppy chasing its tail.
Tentacles envelop Atwood in a smoldering embrace.
Go on, little man. Finish your prayer. You know that no one is listening.
Atwood struggles. The Leake thing wraps a tentacle around the man's neck and pulls him in close. Lake's face slowly and painfully reshapes itself into that of Atwood. The suffocating man is now staring at himself.
In your merciful hands.
Overcome, Atwood can't go on. He extends his hand and grabs the shotgun. A surge of wet, rubbery tentacles invade Atwood's neck. His face becomes bestial with a huge grinning mouth and sharp teeth. It lunges. Outside on the ice later, outside the Miskatonic, the men lash 3 crates of dynamite into a dog sled. From inside the boat, the sound of a shot.
Atwood! Where's Atwood?
I'm sorry. The shotgun, I heard something and it went off.
The men look up at the highest of the Miskatonic's rusty decks. They see Atwood standing woodenly at the rail.
I'm sorry. I found what I was looking for.
He lifts the Bible. Danforth and Dyer exchange a look. Atwood seems distant and ready to die.
Well, get down here now. We have no time to waste.
Atwood stands there watching them work. Finally, he starts down.
We had no real hope, but this last plan gave us something to hold on to.
Cut to interior military hospital day. End flashback, back to 1939. In the greenhouse of military hospital, Starkweather sits opposite the old haunted Dyer, who's in handcuffs.
Something to act on.
Tears run down his wizened cheeks.
Go on. It's all right, Dyer. I'm here.
But Dyer is looking at the consul, who comes in from the lush garden outside.
Captain, we've had word from London. Warsaw has fallen.
As Starkweather opens his orders, the consul glares at Dyer.
They say this Arkham inquiry, it's not worth any more of your time. They want you to sail tonight to...
Shh, I understand. Say no more, please. Not now.
The consul moves away.
Please tell me what happened to Danforth, the Larsen.
Dyer nods, looks at Starkweather, ready to finish the tale. Cut to exterior crevasse night. Roped together, Larsen and Atwood are deep in the crevasse, setting charges of dynamite and stringing links of fused wire. Shreds of fog blow past them. Dyer and Danforth work on another section closer to the surface. Hearing chanting, Dyer cautiously raises his head.
Keep working.
Staying low, he grabs a shotgun and moves off towards the bonfires around the ship. Closer, The scorched tents billow in the night wind. The empty stone monoliths and their lids are scattered about. Dyer hides and spies the remnants of the men from the Arkham, now fused into a grotesque, multi-limbed, crawling thing. Their arachnoid arms have speared the still twitching bodies of the exhumed old ones. They intone in a guttural phrase, Pinguali Naquad Cthulhu, Real Wagali Fanakling.
Oh, dear God.
A crude welter of symbols and stone is arranged in a ritual circle. Impaled on stakes, the lifeless alien head drips blood. Dyer sees a monstrous being genuflect towards the mountains in expectation. He follows their gaze as the beams of greenish aurora orestris reach beyond the peaks. Clouds boil up in a gathering storm.
What the hell?
Scurries away. In the crevasse, Dyer comes running and he finds Danforth climbing out.
Now, touch it off now. Now, do you hear?
But Larsen and Atwood.
It doesn't matter. Set it off, you hear? Don't wait.
Danforth frantically wires up the detonator, hands shaking. Dyer darts along the crevasse, following the fuse wire.
Larsen, Atwood.
Inside the fissure, Larsen hears the shouts as he places the last of the dynamite.
Ready, let's get.
When he turns, he sees Atwood ripping down the wires. Larsen chuckles.
You, whatever the fuck you are, you're good. You got me.
Atwood turns and starts to transform.
But you really don't know shit about explosives, do you?
The Atwood thing lunges, but Larsen grabs a shotgun and points them, not at the creature, but at the dynamite. Bam! Ice field continuous. A blinding series of explosions rockets along the ice fissure, lighting up the night. A mighty sound wells up from below. Danforth and Dyer are blown backwards as the world heaves and bucks. Gargantuan shards of ice lift from the sea, then slide away. The entire isthmus is breaking apart. On the Arkham, the creatures turn, reacting to the explosions. Like spiders, they leap towards the crevasse. Running, on the two men head for the ship. Sheets of seawater wash over their boots as the ice folds into the tilts towards their feet.
They're off the ship. Keep running.
Behind them, the creatures howl as the salt water overruns their extremities, burning away hunks of flesh. In the middle of it, the Arkham, surrounded by smoke, rolls away toward the port side. A huge insect-like thing lands in front of Danforth, swatting at him. He ducks and manages to shoot. The thing goes down, dragging its wounded membranes. A pack of six-legged, snarling dog things is expelled from the boiling flesh, their backs alive with tendrils. Danforth shoots again. Click. He's out of shells. The dogs leap. Suddenly, Danforth's legs go out from underneath him and he skids into a widening gap. In the gap, Danforth grabs a handhold, dangling over the oblivion. Hunks of ice slide past. The dog things tumble past him into the darkness, but transform rapidly enough to grip the ice wall and climb. Their heads fuse and form a massive maw, open and hungry. Danforth slides towards it. From out of nowhere, Dyer's hand reaches down, seizing Danforth.
My turn, pal.
He shoots up at the climbing creature and pulls Danforth up. For a moment, the two friends look at each other, remembering.
The ship, it's free.
The Arkham is drifting away, heeling over the still open gash on her side. The Arkham, now Danforth and Dyer, grab onto the trailing hawser. Two creatures leap up after them, sprouting spidery legs, seizing the same time. Climbing up for all it's worth, Dyer loses his shotgun. Danforth fires, blasting the first creature, sending it bubbling and boiling into the sea. But the second Shoggoth is gaining on them, spreading more limbs. They reach the deck. The creature keeps climbing, right behind them. Danforth points the gun. Click. Out of shells. He starts reloading. In a tool cabinet next to one of the massive drills, Dyer finds a fire axe. He hacks at the hawser. The Shoggoth throws up three tentacles, which each grab a rail. Dyer slices through them, then chops the rope. The Shoggoth tumbles to its watery grave. In the water, it disintegrates, squealing and squirming. Interior Arkham deck same. The freshly severed tentacles roll and grow exponentially, ballooning tenfold. Golden stalks bludgeon from the fingers, striking new life. Then a roaring sound fills the air.
Bill. Jesus, Bill, we're in hell.
Danforth and Dyer look back as up from behind the mountain range comes a heaving titan, Cthulhu. It towers over the darkness, shifting and swaying, its membranous wings extended, filling the horizon, its abominable head silhouetted by lightning in the clouds. Danforth and Dyer flee into the ship's bowels. The growing Shoggoths pour from the deck grate in hot pursuit. In the ship, Danforth and Dyer run through the corridor. The floors are dark with blood. The Shoggoth flesh foams through the ventilation grills, snatching at Dyer, who swings his axe at Danforth, who fires. Dyer, who swings the axe. Danforth fires wildly at anything that moves. They enter a flooded hold, and they jump waist deep into the salt water. They wade frantically into the storage room. The shrieking Shoggoth makes contact with the water and steams and bubbles. A growing rumble. Exterior of the Arkham, night. The writhing Cthulhu looms over the ship, black against the starry sky. The creature squeezes the vessel, bending the steel plates, popping rivets. It plucks the Arkham from the water and cracks it like a boiled egg. Dozens of fleshy organs explode into the mess hall, the cabins, and the bridge. Dyer and Danforth hold on for dear life as the storage room turns over 360 degrees. Exterior of the Arkham continuous. Slow motion. The Arkham tumbles slowly through the air, thrown by the thing. The ship comes down with a huge splash. Various views of corridors in the ship. Water rushes in through every opening in the ship, flooding the engine room, the mess hall, the lab, in each instance destroying Shoggoths, washing them away, each hissing steam, hissing chaos. In the storeroom, Dyer hits the floor hard. Icy water rushes in. Staggering to his feet, Dyer pushes the steel door shut and locks it. Danforth lurches to a porthole and beholds a mind-snapping image. At the porthole, Cthulhu, impossibly big, its black, sparkling body throbbing with energy. In the storeroom, then, Danforth sees something else.
No, 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 no.
Dyer turns to him. Danforth is pale and will not speak.
What? What is it?
In shock, Danforth slams a shutter over the porthole, locks it. He puts down the shotgun and sinks back down onto the bench.
Oh, no, please.
Tell me what you saw.
He saw the future.
A Shoggoth resolves into the home of Professor Leake and steps from the shadows.
You too, Dyer. You saw the dark man.
Dyer freezes in recognition. Danforth edges towards the shotgun.
In your dreams, dreams are a form of knowledge. Isn't that what you crave? Knowledge? Then learn this. The dark man is us. For one of us can contain all. Indeed, our name is Legion. You may warn everyone. There will be others who will come here. The old ones gave you pride. Pride was their downfall. It will be yours.
Danforth snatches up the gun. Leake sends out a stalk of protoplasm engulfing his arm.
It's only a matter of time, and we have all the time in the world.
A swish of the axe as Dyer slices the Shoggoth flesh in two, freeing Danforth. Bam! Danforth fires. Leake screeches and screams, falling backward and decomposing into a massive ooze.
Oh, God.
Lake's Shoggoth tissue wriggles out of Danforth's sleeve. He flings off his jacket, rips open his shirt, and exposes his bicep, which has been invaded by an opalescent jelly.
Dyer, shoot me. Shoot me now.
Danforth's arm starts to bubble and mutate.
Can't,
Bill, please, I beg you. Do it. Bill, I can feel it taking over, please. Let me choose how I die.
Grimacing, Dyer points the gun and shoots. Danforth drops to his knees, covered in blood. He stares glassy-eyed at Dyer.
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry.
Danforth dies in Dyer's arms. Dyer cries, embracing the corpse. Suddenly, from outside in the ship's corridor, Dyer hears voices. He scrambles backwards, holding Danforth's body. He curls up, trembling in the water. He waits, heart pounding. Wet, shuffling noises come closer and closer. Horrible whispers. Then, the doorknob slowly turns. Then it rattles. A moment later, an awful bang as something pounds on the door, hard. It bursts open. A figure is silhouetted, speaking incomprehensibly. With a scream, Dyer leaps up. End flashback. Interior storeroom day. Dyer's axe connects with a hapless sailor from the Royal Navy in 1939. He's quickly surrounded and pinned down by the terrified Australians. And Dyer is impossibly old. The boat around him is a rusted, waterlogged ruin. The men can't contain his inhuman strength. As he tears free of his captors, the Australian officer leans back from above, aiming a pistol. Bang. He shoots. Dyer bleeds in slow motion. One by one, the drops of blood fall from his hands, like pearls from a broken necklace.
I felt relief. Seeing my blood. Someone human had shot me.
Dissolved 2. Interior hospital cell. Night. Dyer finishes his tale, shivering.
I hoped to die, I really did. but I know now why I've been spared to deliver this warning. In my mind, to me, this happened yesterday, just yesterday. Do you understand?
I understand perfectly.
Starkweather knocks firmly on the cell door. 2 orderlies open it.
You killed the men on board the Arkham. You shot Danforth in cold blood. You, sir, sabotaged the expedition. Why or how? That does not concern me. Now I must go and sail at midnight.
Starkweather hurries for the door.
No, you're wrong.
Mental hospital corridor. 2 orderlies shut the door on Dyer, who's screaming through the barred window.
You can't go. It's still there, waiting for us.
In the adjacent rooms, other patients scream in excitement. The cacophony becomes unbearable. Starkweather hastens his exit. Exterior hospital exit night. Insects are buzzing in the warm night air. Starkweather's warrant officer is hurrying down the path towards the hospital. Good evening, sir. Starkweather swipes by him, headed for a staff car parked on the curb.
Let's get going, Wilson. I'm wasted more than enough time here.
Cut to exterior ocean day. Jagged blue-green icebergs stretch off into a gray limbo. HMS Moonstone surges through the heavy fog in the Antarctic Sea. On the Moonstone, from his command on the bridge, Starkweather scans the approaching shoreline with binoculars. A communications officer approaches him.
Sir, a report from Hobart, sir.
Yes, what does it say?
Says, sir, that Mr. William Dyer died in his cell last night. Hanged himself, sir.
Be all.
Yes, sir.
Starkweather contemplates a cloud approaching the ship. As it engulfs them, dissolved to exterior Antarctic landscape day. A snowstorm ravages the frozen waste. Starkweather appears with half a dozen men in sleds. Half a mile off, he sees a dark line in the ice, a zigzag frozen fissure causing the isthmus that has rejoined the main ice field. Closer in, a ragged tent, the ruins of a dog sled, rusting diesel cans. Starkweather and the men go down to investigate. Interior tent day. Starkweather enters the tent. Nothing. There's nothing inside but piles of snow and bloodstained autopsy tables. Outside, the wind rises. Exterior camp continuous. Starkweather exits the tent. He looks around disoriented. All of the men have vanished without a trace.
Wilson? Hello? Anyone?
And then he sees it. Blurry at first, and then clearly. A hooded figure coming towards him through the snow. Closer and closer. The face remains in shadow. In the sky, the clouds begin to churn at super speed. Camera pulls back until the 2 figures are alone in the vast white plain dwarfed by the mountains of madness. Superimpose. At the end of days will come a man that walks like a man, looks like a man, but is not a man. Revelations 5:19. Fade to black.
Yay.
And that's some Mountains of Madness. We'll see you at the next reading.